Hi, I'm Annalee, and this is my YouTube knitting journal. My name is Annalee, and I live in Seattle, Washington. I have 3 large dogs, 2 teenage children, and 1 handsome Latino husband. I live in Seattle, however, I am not in Seattle right now. I am on a vacation. My husband and I, we just really wanted to go somewhere sunny. The winters in Seattle can be long. Not that the weather is all that cold. We don't get much snow in Seattle, but they're very dark, and there's short hours of daylight, and that can really just get to us. So right now we are in Jamaica, and I feel so blessed and privileged to be able to be on a vacation like this. For much of my life, a vacation like this was definitely not accessible. And so now that it is, I just have so much appreciation for the fact that I can travel and do some exciting things. Now, it's been just over 2 weeks since the last time I recorded a video, 15 days, I think. I haven't recorded for a while just because the week leading up to vacation, kind of a busy week, had to wrap some things up for work and take my son to some appointments and so on. And then of course, we've been on vacation for the past week. But I did think it would be kind of fun to record a video from here and show some of my vacation knitting. So first, let me tell you what I'm wearing. This is a pattern that's called Edie by Isabel Kramer. I love her designs. They're very simple, but they're also really well thought out. There's just small details that help make the fit really nice. There's little things like there's a faux seam, so a row or a column of purl stitches that I really like. It's got a slip stitch pattern on this one, although I seem to remember that I altered the slip stitch pattern in some way, and I don't remember exactly how. I can't remember if I made fewer rows or something like that. It's knit out of KnitPicks yarn called Lindy Chain, which is, I don't know if it's 100% linen or if it has some cotton content in there, but it's constructed as a chainette yarn, so it's almost like a little crochet chain that you can knit with. And it is perfect. It's great for a warm weather garment because of the linen, and it is just kind of loose and flowy, and I just love this thing. I've actually been wearing several hand knit or crochet garments on this vacation. It's really fun for me that I have gotten to a point in my knitting and crafting life that just about every single day I wear at least one item that I made myself. That's just really fun and really satisfying. So I have like a crochet top that I made that I was able to use kind of as a swimsuit cover up. I have a knit tank top. I have actually another garment made out of this exact same yarn. And it's just been really, really satisfying to wear these things on vacation. It's been a while since I've been on a proper vacation. So I wanted to have a project or two to work on while on vacation. I quite enjoy sitting by the beach and having a project to work on. Of course, while I'm in the airplane, it's really nice to have a project to work on. Now, back at home in Seattle, before leaving for vacation, I had 3 works in progress. And it just so happened all 3 are cardigan projects. So one of those projects is the Agneta cardigan by Petite Knit. And I showed my progress on that the last time I recorded a video, and I have not made any progress at all since then. So it's in exactly the same state that it was, which is okay because I'm considering that project more of a long-term project. It is going to be kind of time-consuming because it's knit at a small gauge and it's brioche. So essentially every row takes 2 passes. There's a lot of little details that take a little time but are going to be worth it to make just a super polished garment in the end. So I kind of put that one on hold, on rest for a short while, so I could work on a couple other things. The second project I was working on is my Stripes Gone Crazy cardigan. Now, this is a pattern that I've been wanting to make for some time, and I've had planned for some time, along with literally dozens of other patterns that I've been wanting to make, and I actually have the yarn already. Part of what I want to, talk about or accomplish in this knitting journal of mine is to tackle all of these projects that I have had planned and already own the yarn for. So I'm setting a goal to get through all of them in the next, hopefully 3 years, although that might be a little bit ambitious. And I'm using a random number generator to basically tell me which project to work on next. So this Stripes Gone Crazy cardigan was chosen by my random number generator a few weeks ago. Last time I made a video, I had just started it. I had not yet split for sleeves and I hadn't started any of the stripes. I worked on it quite a bit, I guess, the week following when I recorded that video, because I made it all the way down through the body. I still have to do the bottom ribbing, but the body is done. I'm really impressed at how fast that project seems to be going, given that it's a fingering weight project, but it's just so interesting to work on. The shaping is so interesting. It has these diagonal stripes of varying widths that are made with short rows. And the pattern is just exquisitely written. The pattern writing is just perfect. The way that it's laid out, it just, I guess, really works with my brain. And it just lays out so clearly what you should be doing at each step. So I'm just loving this project, and I guess I'm kind of through the fun part of it now, but I still look forward to finishing it up. I plan to give it to someone in my life because I don't think it's going to be the right size for me. But I didn't start that project because I wanted the finished object. I started that project because it's so interesting and I wanted to see how it was made, and I wanted to learn from the pattern, and I have definitely done all of that. So, goal accomplished. Now, the third project that I have back at home in Seattle is another cardigan that was chosen by my random number generator. It's the Chunky Dahlia V-neck. And part of the reason I chose another pattern in my queue with my random number generator before finishing the previous one, the Stripes Gone Crazy cardigan, is because I wanted to see if the random number generator would choose something that would be appropriate for a vacation knit that I could bring with me and work on vacation. Because that Stripes Gone Crazy cardigan, it uses a lot of different colors, and it takes a lot of thinking or checking the pattern. It's not just mindless knitting, so I didn't think that would be a good one to bring with me on vacation. So the project that got chosen was the Chunky Dahlia V-neck cardigan, and it's a very cool pattern. I love it because it's chunky, so it's working up really fast, but it's going to be very striking because it's got a really cool looking lace motif on the yoke. So at first I thought, okay, this will work for vacation knitting because I can get the yoke done, and then from there the body is all stockinette, and if I get the yoke done before I leave, then I can work on the stockinette portion while I'm away from home, and it'll be pretty mindless. I decided not to bring it on vacation for a couple of reasons. Number one is that because it's a chunky weight and it's working up so quickly, it wasn't going to be enough knitting to last me the entire time that I'm here. And it just didn't make sense to bring a project that takes up that much space with all that bulky yarn for not a whole lot of knitting time. The other reason is that on that project, the button band of the cardigan is worked simultaneously with the body. And I'm actually using a slightly smaller needle to work the button band, which is done in ribbing. So I have a double pointed needle on one side of the project, and then a circular needle for the main body of the project. And then around at the other side, I have a second double pointed needle. And the two double pointed needles are slightly smaller gauge than the needle that I'm using for the body. So that makes it a little bit fiddly to work. And also because I'm doing the button band simultaneously, that means that I'm doing buttonholes. So that's a lot of kind of precise counting. You know, I want to make sure that my buttonholes are evenly spaced. So I just figured it wasn't going to be as mindless a knit as I would like to have for vacation. So I pivoted. I ended up bringing two projects with me, both new cast-ons, and I will share them with you now. So the first project is a knitting project, and it's going to be for my son. I decided a year or so ago that I would like to start a tradition with my family that every year at Christmas, my Christmas gift to them is a hand knit sweater. Not the complete object, but the promise to make them a sweater. Any pattern they'd like, any design they'd like, any yarn they'd like, and I promised to have it completed by the end of the following year. So for Christmas 2021, each of my family members chose a project that they would like to have, and I worked on them throughout the year. I procrastinated quite a bit, and they didn't get them until the very end of 2022. In fact, my son's may have been slightly into 2023, although I'm pretending that it wasn't. According to my Ravelry project page, and I guess my own head, his was finished at the end of 2022, although technically they had I cheated a little and worked on it a little bit into 2023. So this year, my son chose another pattern, another sweater that he wants me to make. And I decided to go ahead and get a jump on that and get started on that now. So even though I have till the end of the year to finish that for him, it's already about 25% done. So the project is a sweater called Vidar. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And it's a pattern by Ariana and Carlos. So this is the second Ariana and Carlos sweater I will have made for my son. One of these days I'm going to have to show you the first one that I made. It's the sweater that was his gift at the end of 2022. And I have to say that I love Ariana and Carlos. I adore them. Their videos got me through the COVID lockdown. They're just so much fun to watch and so pleasant and calming and relaxing. Their patterns, it seems, are, and I think that they'll admit this themselves, they're created more from a fashion design perspective than a knittability perspective. So the sweater that I made for my son last year, it had a lot of really complicated intarsia. It was my first time doing intarsia, and I didn't completely love that process. The result is just stunning, but from what I understand, Arne and Carlos create the designs, but not the patterns. They create the designs. I think they mostly work with Rowan, and then Rowan has a team of pattern writers that convert Arne and Carlos's designs into patterns. So I'm not sure that they always design them with knittability in mind, but that's okay because I don't mind challenging techniques. And I don't mind trying something new, and I really, really like the patterns that result. So this year, the pattern that my son chose is called Vidar, and again, I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. And Arne and Carlos said that the inspiration for the design is the traditional 8-leaf Norwegian rose. I think it's also maybe called a Selbu rose, but a traditional 8-point Norwegian rose, but that it's kind of melting or disintegrating. And I think they even said they were inspired by, when you have posters, like one layer pasted on top of another, and then the layers start peeling off. So that's what the inspiration for the design is. And it's extremely cool looking. My son, who is much more into fashion than I am, he loves it. He loves the idea that it's got almost like a story or a perspective in the design. But the design is made not with stranded color work and not with intarsia, but with an entirely different technique that Arne and Carlos referred to as layered color work. So the way it works is that you knit the entire sweater with one yarn, a wool yarn, and then for the color work portions, you hold together with the wool yarn a strand of mohair. So it's kind of a semi-intarsia technique, because you don't drop one yarn completely and pick up another color, but you do drop the color of mohair and then pick it back up when you return to do the next row in the other direction. So I made a swatch, and I went ahead and brought my swatch with me. As you can see, I've got a blue background or main color, and then 4 different colors of mohair that I'm going to use for the color work. The main yarn it's called Patagonia, and it's from Juniper Moon Farms. It's a yarn that I've worked with before, and I really liked it. It's really soft, but kind of grippy, or I've heard people use the word toothy. I'm not entirely sure what that means when it comes to yarn, but maybe that's what it means. And one ball or one skein of yarn seems to last forever. I made a cardigan for myself that's kind of boxy and oversized, and I think it used less than 3 skeins of this yarn. So it seems to be a pretty good, I guess, value for the money. And then in addition to that, I was able to buy it on sale at Little Knits, which is a Seattle-based company, but it's an online business, and they seem to have a lot of discontinued and clearance yarns. So I was able to get a really good deal on it, and I don't need very much of it. And then the mohair is all from Lana Grossa, the Lana Grossa Silkhair. So I've actually decided to swap out one of the colors of mohair. This gray here, I think you can see it okay on the camera, but it's just not as vibrant, and it's not supposed to be super crisp because the inspiration for the design is this kind of melting, fading, tearing away. You know, so which makes this technique perfect for it. But you can just barely see that gray at all. In fact, the first few rows, those rows down there were knit with one strand of mohair. And I thought, well, let me try holding 2 strands of mohair along with the wool. So then these sections right here have 2 strands of mohair. I thought that was a little bit more complicated, and it made the fabric a little more dense than I would like. So even though the color shows up a little bit better with the 2 strands of mohair, I would prefer to do it with a single strand. And so I got an additional color, a dark brown, which I think is going to show up a lot better than the gray. And then the other 2 colors I think work pretty well. And these are both with a single strand of mohair. Now, normally a complicated color work design would not be good for vacation, but the entire back of this sweater is just made with the wool yarn. The entire back of the sweater doesn't have any of that color work. So what I did is, before I left for vacation, I cast on the ribbing of the back with a slightly smaller needle, and then I did a couple rows of the main stockinette fabric with the main needle. And then it's just, you know, over 100 rows of just plain stockinette. So perfect vacation knitting. And I have made it through almost the entire back. So there is a little bit of sleeve shaping. So I did have to refer to a pattern briefly to do some, I guess, underarm shaping. This is where I'm going to attach the sleeve. It's going to be a set-in sleeve. But really, I think there's about 10 or 15 more rows, and I will be completely done with the back. I haven't even gone through an entire skein of yarn yet, so this is still left from the first skein of yarn. And it's just been perfect vacation knitting. You know, it's not too heavy, and don't have to think about it very hard. It's just back and forth in stockinette. And I feel good having gotten a jump start on this year's sweater that is promised to my son. So hopefully I will make up for the previous year where it was a little bit late and had to cheat and use a little bit of 2023. This one hopefully will be done on time. All right, my second vacation project is not actually knitting, it's crochet. So I don't crochet nearly as often as I knit. I am not nearly as knowledgeable a crocheter as a knitter, but I learned crochet first. And I remember I had to have been like 5 or 6 years old, because it was before we moved from Utah to California, that my mom taught me how to crochet, and I crocheted myself a pencil pouch. And I have this memory of it. And a pencil pouch is not a really great project to do with crochet, because crochet's kind of holy and all the pencils poked through, but I remember making that and being very proud of it. So crochet is good for vacation knitting because at least for what I've decided to make, it's a lot of just repetition. So you, again, don't need to be referring to a pattern. I have been making some granny squares. I've got all these ends hanging off, as you can see. So I think I'm up to, I think I've made, I don't know, maybe almost 30 so far of these granny squares. And obviously they are very bright colors. Not sure this is what you would call a sophisticated color palette, but I don't care. I love bright colors. Maybe I have the taste of a 10-year-old girl. I just think these are really fun, bright colors. And I have one more color that I am going to incorporate into this project. It's a dark chocolate brown, but I didn't bring any of it with me because I'm only going to be using that to join the squares together and do some of the more complicated stuff. So for now, I just brought the 3 colors and I'm just cranking out these granny squares. The yarn that I'm using is Cascade 220. And I think that all of the colors that I chose are maybe colors that are going to be discontinued because I got them at a really discounted price, again from Little Knits. So I'm not sure why they're very steeply discounted, but my suspicion is that they're colors that are going to be discontinued. Now, what am I making with all of these? Not a blanket. I'm going to make a cardigan. So the pattern I'm making is called the Ariana cardigan by Amy Christophers, or maybe it's Christophers. I've heard it pronounced both ways. She has a fairly popular design, the pressed flowers. There's a shawl and a cardigan and a hat design. And so I seems to be the same designer that has this crochet design. It's actually a free pattern from Barocco that came out a few years ago. I like it because in that design the granny squares are placed on point or diagonally, so it just gives a little twist on a classic granny square, I suppose. And then the button band and the bottom ribbing and the cuff ribbing on that design are all actually knitted. So you pick up stitches at the end and knit. So I'm looking forward to having this. I think it's going to be really fun. Again, super bright colors, but I think that actually works well for being on vacation as I'm making this. These are very Caribbean island-esque colors. In fact, the name of the colorway of the blue, that colorway is called Caribbean. A few years ago, the last time, oh, I hear an airplane outside. Not sure if you can hear that on the video. What was I saying? Oh, a couple years ago, my husband and I went on a vacation to the Dominican Republic, and I worked on a project while I was there. It was the Le Pouf cardigan, it's a free design from Hedgehog Fibers. And I remember that because it was the first garment I made that I think, splurged on the yarn. So I bought, several skeins of Hedgehog Fibers yarn at a non-sale price, so a full price. Which is a lot. It adds up to a lot. So that cardigan is like the most expensive piece of clothing or item of clothing that I own. Almost 200 US dollars after tax. But, they're really bright colors. It's got a fade. So it starts with kind of a peach color and then transitions into more of a brighter orange and then into a deep teal blue color. And I didn't intend it at first when I chose to bring that project with me to the Dominican Republic, but it ended up being perfect, and I felt like it was thematic because you have the bright orange which reminded me of all of the passion fruit that I was eating while I was there. And then the bright blue, which reminded me of the water. The word that they use for passion fruit is chinola. So I decided to name that my chinola sweater, and I still call it that. Sometimes I'll tell my husband I'm gonna wear my chinola sweater today. So I figured that this project, this cardigan, once I get it all assembled, will be my Montego Bay cardigan. And it's just really fun to have worked on a project on vacation, and then every time that I use it or wear it, I am reminded of my vacation and the really fun time that I had. Well, I think that's about it for today. I am going to put on some more sunscreen and go sit by the pool. I might do a little bit of crochet while I'm there. I look forward to coming back and recording another video soon and updating you on the progress of all of my projects. And it may even be time for me to run my random number generator Python program again to choose another project in my queue. Thank you so much for being here with me. Until next time, bye.